Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. Rick's scouting the World Series, which we're going to talk about here a little bit later on. So not sure if he'll call in later, but he's not going to be here, at least at the beginning. Getting right into high tempo. Matt, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, there was actually a story on the USA Today that caught my eye. IMG Academy that we talked about a couple different times here from Bradenton, Florida. They were scheduled to play a program from Ohio, and their game actually got canceled because the Ohio Department of Education revoked the school registration of the Christians of Faith Academy. It was a school that was based out of Columbus. And the more that I read in the story, it looked almost like it was a money school, because they got their school revoked because they did some research into what the location of the school was, and there wasn't an actual school site. There wasn't an actual, it almost was like an AAU high school was the direction that I think it went. And so, the Ohio Department of Ed shut it down and just said, no, we're not doing this. And so they ended up having to cancel that game.
So they could shut down the whole school?
Or at least the athletic department part, because it was the school was started by former Ohio State and NFL player Jay Richardson. So they were funneling a lot of people from that Columbus area in, and I guess the education department started doing some research into the school and realized that the where they had their school set up, their physical address, it didn't match up. It just went to a church, and there wasn't actually a school there with it.
So that's crazy. So they had a fake school just to get guys to play football. If I was a parent, I would go completely insane. What is going to happen? Now, those kids were probably being recruited. If the school doesn't exist, what do they have to do? Enroll back in public school? Would they even allow them to play this year?
Well, I think the school was an online school, but one of the things here from the article, it said there have been red flags about the academy since its inception, and it said the school materialized out of thin air, and while it did not have a school building, a working website, an identifiable academic structure, an announcement of home field, or a released roster. So it was just out of nowhere, this school just magically formed, and they had all these athletes. So we're playing, IMG is a nationally known high school which I didn't know this. They have two different squads. They have a white team that is their local, they play local games in the area. And then they have a blue team, which is their travel team that plays games across the country. So, we've talked before about AAU and the risks associated with that. It almost seemed like that's kind of the direction that some of these schools, because IMG, they were set, or this other school, they were set to play the school out of Baltimore, where the Michigan booster had started that school.
Whoa. Don't throw any slanders about Michigan in this. You're talking about Biff
He was a
Poggi.
Michigan man.
No, his son plays on our team. I think he still plays. Henry Poggi. He was one of our fullbacks or linebackers or something.
Well, right, but I remember him. I remember you talking about him, and he has a school in Baltimore that they were set to play. There was IMG. There's these schools that are playing these national games, and it's just an interesting story that I know this place in Columbus that I would assume is, if they're based out of Columbus, that they're probably funneling players to Ohio State, especially with an Ohio State alum being there.
Well, I will say you're probably right. And I hear what you're saying, and I think you're saying that all I need is an alum to just create a fake school, and I can be a high school football coach. And we can go undefeated because you can pull any athletes you want. And as long as you have a working website, which I can do, we can go ahead and be legit. So jump right on that.
We'd need to have some kind of tuition assistance to be able to bring those high caliber athletes to the school.
So we need a money school like Ohio State to help sweep this under the rug so they can keep their talent in Columbus, is what you're saying.
I like where your head's at with this. Maybe that's the route we need to look at.
Yeah, you want to coach big time players? You can go right in, just jump right up the ladder, get right into college ball. But
that's the way to prepare for college coaching. Recruit high school kids for your high school team.
Well, it's almost at that point, and I don't even know what they're going to do. I did know that IMG had 2 teams, but I didn't realize that the other one stayed in Florida. I thought it was more like a high-profile JV that they were kind of just bringing kids in to try out, and if they didn't make it, then they would get back to their high school, because I had seen some recruits that played on that team and had transferred out to a different school, like another one of the Catholic schools across Florida, but I didn't realize that it served a completely different purpose. But I do know that the main one is the squad that's like the national team that plays teams from other sports, which is almost what Poji's team, I can't remember what school it was, but the one in Baltimore, that's almost what he's going to have to do. And if you're a school like his school was not built on football, it's going to be very hard to raise funds to convince people, when I think he was the one footing the bill. Like, hey guys, now we
Baltimore
should
play St. Francis Academy.
Yeah, so he's going to have to pitch to donors of the school or foot the bill himself, like he's been doing, I believe, to get a plane to fly across the country, because you're not going to be able to drive a bus to a game in Florida or Texas or California. And, I mean, it's going to be tough. You're only going to have a handful of schools, and they're all going to be tied, like you said, to the AAU. The basketball, they're all tied to big shoe companies, which is why there's the FBI investigation. So I'm sure we're going to be digging into that later. Like I said, I was trying to wait till they did all of the, I guess, what they're doing, the court proceedings, but we'll be digging on that in a couple weeks. So we'll circle back around
and
this.
I think
Go ahead.
Real quick with this story, I think the issue that they had was as they were looking for the physical site, the address that the school was given for what they were based out of was the 3rd Episcopal District of the AME Church, and they pretty much disavowed any knowledge of the school or its operations. So it was like they were saying, this is the site where our school is, and then when the Department of Ed was contacting the church, was like, yeah, no, we don't have anything to do with this school. So I think that's why everything was flagged, and there's all these other issues now.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I just hate it for the kids and the families, because someone is coming to a mom and saying, hey, I can take your son and get him a college scholarship. And it's almost like a predatory deal. And it's just a shame that if you don't have that strong family network to be like, this seems like a scam, doesn't seem like a good idea to go to a fake online school. Because even then, if you're at the school, you play football, big deal if you can't pass the entrance exams. You're going to be at the last chance you that we see. All the kids that go the JOCO route, because they just can't cut it academically. And an online school without a curriculum seems like it's just setting up for that scam. So hate to see it for the families, hate to see it for the kids. But going to jump into, well, I'll give my high tempo just real quick. We don't really talk about the NBA. And I just wanted to bring up the fact that we talk about refs, we talk about TV ratings on this show. And the NBA has been, a couple coaches have been complaining about the astronomical amount of foul shots. And I just want to throw out a little conspiracy here that how do we know that they're not setting up because of the gambling situation where gambling is not legal? All it takes is, I saw some ridiculous stat, like a lot of teams were shooting like 50, getting 50 free throw points in an NBA game. That is ridiculous. Even if you're going to extras, I don't want to sit and watch a guy shoot 50 free throws. Are you kidding me? So it just makes me skeptical that all it takes is one little wrong call and you can swing the game. And with this, I wanted to lead it off with the NBA, but I wanted to make sure that I hit it. But Mike Leach came out, and he came out against the Pac-12 officiating. We talked about the story a week or two ago, but the Pac-12 has a guy that sits in the booth and can apparently call in and reverse calls. Well, they broke the text chain. They leaked some of the texts, and Mike pretty much just came out and said, "Hey, I know you're afraid of USC." And the guy said, "Are you accusing me?" And he said, "I'm not accusing you of anything, but you need to do your job. It is your job." Which is just crazy that it only takes one call, one team. And I'll kind of stick on the Pac-12 side. We know that they're probably not USC fans up in the booth trying to make USC win, but I can guarantee you that they are looking at those playoff predictions and seeing, hey, which Pac-12 team has a legitimate chance to make the playoffs? And they see USC right now, they're going to try to make USC win. Right now, a lot of people are discounting the Pac-12 because everyone has a loss already, and a lot of their bigger teams have 2 losses. Washington's loss to Auburn, not looking like a good loss. You have Oregon tearing through some teams, but they already have a loss. Then they get double-digit killed by Washington State. They haven't beat Mike Leach or Washington State in over 4 years. So Washington State sitting right there, and you know that the committee is going to do anything not to pick them if they win the Pac-12, if they have Texas or Michigan or Oklahoma or Notre Dame sitting there with the same record. And it's just unfair, which is why I've always been a proponent of the auto bid. But keep an eye on the refs. It's not just college football that we talk about on this show. I just wanted to give a follow-up on Mike Leach since we talked about it. He came out. I'll try to find the story. I think it was on ESPN, and I'll share it so you can follow us on Twitter, SBound Sports, or Facebook. I didn't put one together last week, but I'm trying to do like a weekly digest of the stories that we talk about and just shoot it up on our Facebook page coming soon. So keep an eye on that. Getting into the Steel City update, I know we're running a little bit late. Don't have anything on the Pirates because we're going to talk World Series, and they're not close to it at all. Getting into Pittsburgh Penguins, nothing really changed that I've saw over the past couple weeks, but I wanted to give a shout-out here that the Carolina Hurricanes are currently in first place. And that's one of the teams that has a close history with the Penguins. Penguins taking the GM from there right before they went on the Cup run. And Hurricanes being down here in North Carolina, that's one of the teams that a lot of people have speculated is going to we're looking to relocate. They went through, the owner was trying to get rid of them. And I've always thought, since I've been down here, when did we originally move? I moved to North Carolina like maybe 2009. Been back and forth. So I always thought that the ownership needs to make a couple moves to get them competitive. And I've been to a few games at PNC Arena. It's a nice arena. And it's good to see some fresh blood. I would hope the Penguins would be able to overtake them in the long run. But just for the area down here, I know it's big because hockey in the North, there's a lot of club teams down here, NC State and North Carolina. The Tar Heels just played in like a club hockey game. And I would love to see hockey reach the ACC and maybe have a joint conference with the Big Ten so I can see Michigan play down here, because that would be awesome. I know Notre Dame's already joined the Big Ten, so I wish some of these ACC schools, especially from here on up, built, because they could really have a feeder system for hockey. It's the only professional sports team in the Raleigh area, so good to see them doing well, and hopefully they can get the support they need to stay here, because I love it from a Penguins perspective that Penguins can come down multiple times throughout the year, and I have a chance to go see them play. But Matt, you have anything on hockey you want to bring up? I'm ready for a football-heavy week.
Yeah, I watched a real little bit, but to be honest, I kind of look at the start of the NHL season similar to the way that I look at baseball. And it's like I have a tough time because there's so many games. I feel like the NHL season starts now, and then they're still playing games, clear into March and April. It's like I feel like the season runs so long that these early beginning of the year games, to me, it almost feels like that doesn't even count, because till you hit at least the midway point of the year, it's like, what do you know? What can you really learn about the team right now that they're going to make moves and they're going to do things that are going to change the dynamic of the roster and the way things play themselves out. So until you know really what your final roster is looking like going into the playoff stretch, it's tough to really get a tough feel for what they have going on.
I agree, and I'll even throw basketball in there. They do all the college conference tip-off tournaments. They don't mean anything. They do the NBA coming back. Doesn't mean anything. You can go ahead and ignore, especially NBA, until April. Hockey, you can start to pay attention to, I think, around July or January. January is whenever they start to make their set rotations. I think really getting ready for the playoff push. That's the most exciting time. That's whenever you're able to see if they're going to make adjustments. Are they going to make any moves to get to that next level? So we'll definitely be checking in on them. Penguins are, I think they're only like a point behind last I looked. I think it was like 9-8 or something similar. But right now, Carolina's on top. Getting into the NFL. Bye week for the Steelers. It turned out to be the best week. Ravens lost on a missed extra point. And that was the first extra point that guy's missed in like 200 tries. Couldn't have come at a better time. Steelers are in first in the AFC North. Bengals couldn't get it done. I watched that game, and they started hot, lose to the Steelers, and they've kind of, I think the it's been out on them, the game plan on how to deal with the Bengals, and I think that they're going to be in for a rough slide, but right now it's the Steelers division. The other big news that I want to hit on, and I'll give you a chance to get in on them, Le'Veon Bell speculated that we broke it whenever it came out that he was supposed to come back this week, the bye week, because he has until October, I think it's the 30th, that he has to report if the Steelers want to trade him, which was what everyone thought he wanted all along. He can sign the deal, get traded, and then I think they have a year. He can only sign one of the 10-year deals or whatever if he comes back. So he would have to work out a long-term deal with that club. Rumors were Steelers had some interest. Eagles were mentioned after Ajayi went down, and some other clubs. But now, Le'Veon Bell, someone from his camp, has come out and said that he does not want to be traded. And it makes sense because he knows where he's going to put the best stats up. You don't get the eyeballs on you if you're not playing in the playoffs. And the Steelers there's no way after the James Harrison thing that they trade him to the Patriots. That would be outrageous. That would be the dumbest thing the Steelers ownership could do. And they really need a running back. It's just not going to happen. So where's he going to go? That's guaranteed a playoff spot. Eagles, maybe. They blew their lead, so I don't even know what to think. So go ahead, Matt. Steelers stuff, what do you think?
I don't know. It's like the plot thickens with all of this Le'Veon Bell talk. I mean, to me, the shocker more than anything is how productive James Conner's been. We were hoping that he was going to fill the void, but I mean, realistically, did you really think that Conner was going to do as well as he did?
No, because I came out and said he was slow.
Right. I mean, there was nothing that indicated, but I think this is where it goes to that other point that we were making before, where he had the reps in training camp, he had the preseason games where he could have that consistent rotation with the running backs. And I think if Le'Veon Bell is actually being serious with the way that he's spinning this, and that it's not about him being greedy in money, that it's about player safety, and that he wants the guaranteed money, then it makes sense for him to stay in Pittsburgh, because for as well as James Conner's running, if he gets anywhere close to what the guaranteed money is that he wants, he can still split playing time with Conner and not have to put himself through the risk. He could play as long as he wants. His career could be dragged out much longer because he's sharing roles with James Conner, because now that I think they're more balanced as far as what they bring to the table. I think you could interchange them, give them reps, give them rest, not have to be so heavy-handed in the backfield, and maybe it helps them out, both of them, career-wise, with not getting banged up.
I'll say this, and I don't know if this is even a popular opinion or if this is something that I just feel. I think the reason that things are so open for James Conner is because Juju emerged as a top receiver. Because now you have Brown and you have Juju on the other side, and then you have Jesse James underneath, who's kind of a reliable tight end. You could take that drop last year out, because I know some people really hate him because of that. That's just a Yinzer talk. But I would say that Juju really takes off. You really can't double, triple cover Antonio Brown. And with that, whenever you do, you're going to have extra coverage in the secondary. You can't stack the box. You cannot stack the box when you have two guys that are capable of going deep. You just can't do it. It's similar to what the Falcons do. And you can say, yeah, you lose a big running back. Can you really have them step in? But with that production, Le'Veon Bell, he was more of a out of the backfield receiver type. If you look at some of his stats, he wasn't running through the tackles. And James Conner can do that. So by going through the tackles, you're adding yet another dimension. Le'Veon Bell wouldn't do that. He would be more patient, wait, bounce it outside, break through. I mean, just straight up, if there's a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1, are you confident with Le'Veon Bell pounding it up the middle? You're not.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, because I haven't seen him do it consistently. I think last year he was off to a slow start. I think even if he decides to come back this year and he shows up in time for playoffs or in time for whatever, that he's going to be rusty. He's not. I think the physical aspect of being in shape for it. He may have a personal trainer and all this other stuff, but I think there's something to be said for being on the field with your teammates, getting those reps that you can't do working out by yourself.
Yeah, and you can't get that game speed. We saw last year whenever he sat out was the first week or so. He didn't get up to speed for a couple weeks after that. So even if he came back now, the longer he waits, the more it hurts the team. And Pouncey came out against it the other day. I don't know if it was today. He came out against it saying that it's amusing to him. He doesn't even know because he hasn't been in contact. And you're going to lose that camaraderie. And by the time you get back, you're a coach. You've been in the locker room. You know that there's going to be friction. And you know that it's not going to work out. I just have the sinking feeling that if he comes back, it's going to ruin the progress that the Steelers have made. I think the adjustment at the beginning of the year was due to some locker room stuff. Seems to have sorted itself out. You find yourself first in the AFC North. You don't need him back. You don't need him back. If you want to trade, there was a rumor Patrick Peterson was available. I think that the Cardinals came out and said that that's not true, but they waited 2 weeks to say that it wasn't true, which means they just didn't find a suitor. Whenever you have a guy like that, that's where you can offload a Le'Veon Bell. I think even Brown tweeted about Patrick Peterson coming and that's an automatic chip or something. I think he said that. Seems like something he would say. And you know that's the Steelers' weakness. You get Joe Hayden across from Patrick Peterson. Come on, that goes from one of your weaknesses to one of your strengths. That secondary. So can you free up your salary room, all that stuff that you were going to get for Le'Veon Bell to bring in a big-time corner? That is what you need to do. So,
I mean, to me, the thing that's most frustrating about it is you would think by listening to some of this, the Pittsburgh was offering him $1 million and he was demanding $55. Like with what Pittsburgh was willing to offer and what he's demanding is the numbers aren't that far off, but it's the amount of guaranteed that it seems to be the sticking point. And from his side, I can respect that, but I think that as thinking from the ownership side, you want to make sure that you have that return on investment because you have guys like Odell Beckham that has this guaranteed money, and it's not doing anything for the New York Giants. He signed this huge guaranteed contract that, personally is great for him and his family, but it doesn't equate to wins. And the bottom line is if you're not winning, you're not making money for your franchise.
And I'll say, didn't they just make a deal? Was it Eli Apple? I think they were involved with a cornerback deal.
Well, they did, but then he got gone. He got traded out.
Yeah, so whenever you have all these contracts, you're not going to be able to build up that depth, and now it looks like the Giants are rebuilding. You can watch for Saquon Barkley. That's about the only bright spot right now on that offense. So you have to build around your defense. You have to, or your offensive line, but the defense is the way that you can flip that switch. And if the Steelers can save $16 million a year and put it towards another corner or some extra linebacker help, I'm all for it. So, I mean, that's all I have on the Steelers. Any other NFL stuff you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was watching a Monday night game last night, and I've been hard on him, but I tell you what, Sarkisian didn't call a bad game last night. From what I watched the first half closely because the Atlanta Falcons are essentially my fantasy football team, and I like what they're starting to do because when you have a player like Julio Jones, the first opening couple weeks of the season, it was like he really wasn't getting the ball. And it almost felt like the Falcons were just kind of throwing up the surrender flag of, well, we know that everyone's going to double team him, so we're just going to focus on everyone else and just accept that if we put him outside, he'll take the coverage. But I like that one of the things they did was they moved him around. And I think that helped Matt Ryan find him. It opened up a lot of stuff for the other guys. I think it's going to make Atlanta a very dangerous team if they can kind of figure out what their defense is doing.
Yeah, I agree. They need to move him around and get him looks. You almost have to give him a couple shots at least downfield just to draw that attention. If you don't draw the attention to him off the bat, you're not going to be able to go to him later on whenever you need it. And it's going to open up other guys. Like Sanu is a solid third receiver. I know Ridley's had some injury issues, but if they get their whole core healthy, I mean, things are going to be open, and if not, you can dump it to one of your running backs. And it's like the same thing I was saying with the Steelers. When you have three pass-catching options, like the Steelers do when you throw in the tight end, two of them can go deep, you pretty much open up the entire field. You're able to do
Absolutely.
whatever. And I think one of the issues that both teams faced is it comes down to the red zone. Can you pound the ball? Can you move whenever you have that condensed field? And I think that's some of the Falcons' issues where they're used to just throwing the fade. And that's where you really got to move him around, run some slants, do some cross patterns. I really liked the double slant fake that they did. The Steelers won the game against the Bengals with the Brown. You had him run the slant, the skinny slant,
rub
right
route
underneath. It looked like a rub, basically was a rub. And that's kind of what you have to do whenever you're down in that situation. Falcons can really take advantage of that and make it run in the NFC because, to me, the NFC is wide open. Carolina's been crawling back. They had a huge comeback again, which shouldn't even be. I just don't even know how teams can't run the ball in the NFL. Like, you don't have one coach that can do any clock management for you. I go back to the Super Bowl with the Falcons. It's absurd.
You know, the thing that's
you don't have one guy on a payroll.
With the Philly game, you said about that, it was like for the longest time, it seemed like they were in control. And I turned my head. I forget what I even did. I think I was just doing some of my own scouting. And I looked up and was like, holy crap, they're going to lose this game. Like, it was like out of nowhere, they just crept back in.
Yeah, it's because of clock management. And if you can't burn the clock, just sit on the lead. Do something. You got to move the ball. You can't just do it and punt and give the other offense a chance to come back. You got to take your shots, but you got to do it smart. And I don't understand why coaches don't practice that. It's almost like we have a lead, let's sit on it, but we haven't really practiced how to sit on it. But I've seen other teams do this in the past, so let's just kind of do it without any thought. And I think the team just relaxes and that's it. So you almost have to have that killer's mentality. Step on their throat and get rid of them. Don't let them hang around.
Well, that's kind of the mindset. I think. Well, that's been the knock on some of the air raid offenses or some of these no up tempo, no huddle offenses is that they always say that you can score points in a hurry, but then when you really need to milk time, are they able to consistently do that? And for now, time has shown no, that they struggle with that aspect of it.
Well, I'll say this, and I know this is getting into college football, but I watched the Washington State game where they had to milk the clock at the end of the game, and I really like the wrinkles that Mike Leach has put in. A lot of people said, like, well, he's not going to get a big-time coaching job because of that air raid offense that he runs, but he was throwing in the shovel shuttle pass. I don't even know what the correct term is. He was throwing that in. He was still throwing little screen routes that he hadn't even thrown in the game before, which opened up routes. And one thing that he really took advantage of was he would run a counter kind of where it looked like it was going to be a screen look, and then you just take one step, like it looks like you're going to throw the screen, hand it off. The counter was getting 8 yards a pop. So whenever they don't know what you're doing, you don't have to do the traditional, let's line up and pound it, but you have to have running looks to run the clock out. And he ran it, and he was running for first downs. They couldn't do anything. He almost had to slow his guys up and be like, let's milk the clock. And in the NFL, you should be able to at least get 3 or 4 yards of carry. Sure, you're not going to be able to gash them on a fake counter screen thing, but you can do that and throw little wrinkles in and just move the ball. And that's what some of these teams need to do. And I'm surprised that they just don't have a guy that they pay, and he's kind of like, hey, coach, this is what we need to do, like a clock management guy. I go back to the old Les Miles teams at LSU. I don't know how he didn't bring a guy in. Could have been like one of their computer science students or some math major and been like, hey, we're going to give you a grad assistantship. You're going to stand here and you're going to do clock management for me. Teams should do that. Just get one guy on staff. So it's absurd. And we know what's going to happen. It never goes away whenever you recycle coaches. So the same coaches, they showed a thing. Was it the Andy Reid? They showed his coaching tree and how a couple of coaches under him won Super Bowls and all this other stuff. And it was like half the league. I'm like, half the league has learned from Andy Reid on how not to win big games. So I ain't calling Andy Reid out, but that's all I have for the NFL. You got anything else?
The one other thing, Amari Cooper and the Raiders.
Oh, I missed that, yeah.
Amari Cooper gets traded out, and this is the only thing as far as the Raiders are concerned that I can see happening. You stockpile all these picks, and you try to get younger. You try to get up to either get little Bosa, and you try to use him as your keystone. You know, that pass rusher that he says isn't around because he's following the T.J. Watt pedigree, following family lineage. If he sees Joey Bosa's doing good with the Chargers, he can pick up Nick Bosa and kind of prepare that team, have a young core group of players that are exciting to then make the move to Las Vegas. This is the only way that I've thought about it that kind of makes what the Raiders are doing right now seem remotely okay, because it has to be locker room issues and team issues where there's just bad fits with stuff. Is the only way that I can think that you trade out anyone that's worth a damn on your current roster.
I think that Cooper has had a tough time fitting in there, and I don't know if it's scheme, but Crabtree also had that where he came in from San Francisco and he just had trouble getting open there. And watching him play with the Niners for a while, I was like, something's up. You just don't have that drop off. And then Cooper's having trouble. And yeah, he puts up numbers, but it's not like Julio numbers or like a solid number one. Like I wouldn't draft him with my number one wide receiver pick in Jesus Christ, in fantasy football. That's like, you're just not going to do that. But is it a coaching thing? Is it a scheme thing? We're going to see, because the Cowboys definitely took the bait, and the Raiders are looking like they're in a full rebuild. The Gruden thing, he's definitely taking advantage of that GM hat. He definitely is, and I don't know. I feel bad for Raiders fans. It has to be a bad move. Has to be.
I don't see. I would like to I would like to say that it's complete mishandling of the organization, but I would think that Gruden has to know more than he's letting on. With having that, like with having the extra access, being part of that Monday Night Football crew, I think that not only did he have access to that, but he had access to so much extra film that most NFL or college coaches don't have access to. And for as much stuff as he's doing, he has to just have a ridiculous amount of information that I would think he has access to and knows something that you would take, because it almost just seems like, why would you troll the world with trading your best like pass rusher and then go on like all your press conferences and talk about how it's tough to get a decent pass rusher when you trade him away? It's like is it because like you just want to troll the rest of like the media? I don't know. It's just it's weird. It's such a weird dynamic. I don't know.
I feel bad for the Carr brothers because now I'm watching both of their careers get sabotaged in real time. After it happened, it was the Houston Texans for the first one. I can't keep them straight. And now this one is Derek, right? He's on go to the playoffs, gets injured, and now it's like, hey, we're going to take the stars on your team and just get rid of them for picks. Like, have fun. Have fun the next couple years.
But you know what? I'll say this. Look at what, Edelman missed a couple games, and look what Brady did with lesser talented receivers. He's taken the Browns cast-offs and winning games with them. So, I mean, do you really, for Amari Cooper was touted, Crabtree at one point was touted. I think you can look at, even to go back to some of the earlier Patriot years, guys like Jabbar Gaffney that like have been a complete flop everywhere else has a Super Bowl ring because he was there. Now, I'm not comparing Derek Carr to Tom Brady.
I think you are.
But if you have the right scheme, you can become a winner. You can make that what you want.
Yeah, I don't know. At this point, it seems like they're trying way, way, way too hard to get into that situation where they can be like, look, Gruden doesn't have his guys. And when you have like an extreme talent like Khalil Mack, you get rid of him. It's hard to take that seriously. It's almost like you're trading away like your best guys just for picks. And you don't know if those picks are going to pan out. So, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. It's going to be interesting because I went to bat for Gruden, and now I'm just looking like a complete moron.
Well, and I say, I'm really watching this a lot closer because from the coaching side, I think something comparable is that, day to day, I see what my kids can do. And I know, what's going to put us in a position to be successful. And for fans that just show up on Friday nights, there's a lot of experts that come that are not volunteers, they're not paid coaches, but they have all the answers for what I should and shouldn't be doing. And I think, I look at it on a very small level and think, well, you have no idea what you're talking about. And then, turning them back around then and casting stones at Gruden, being like, "What the hell are you doing?" I think the fan,
oh man,
the fan has you looking like, well, you have no idea what you're talking about. But then to actually see, and going through that experience of trying to find the people that fit what you want to do, and knowing that, there are deficiencies and things like, kind of backtracking a little bit. The announcers last night were saying about how Eli Manning needs to take more deeper throws downfield.
Yeah, remember when they were saying that about Peyton Manning's rubber arm?
Yeah, it's
once you hit that brick wall, you're done.
And it was like, I heard them say that, and it was like, I can't believe I'm going to defend Eli Manning, but it's like he got pummeled. He got absolutely pummeled, and it's like, yeah. In theory, drop back and throw it deep, but if you don't have time to fart, that's pretty tough to stand in the pocket and make a deep throw if you're getting drilled every time you drop back. So, there's more pieces to it. And if only it were that easy to go, oh, yeah, just throw a deep pass to Odell by himself. Like, that'll definitely work.
Well, I'll say, I don't want to harp on this any longer, but the last thing is, I think the Amari Cooper deal is an easier one to swallow than the Khalil Mack one. On defense, you just want the strongest, most athletic guys that you can get, and then you fit the scheme around them. If you have an edge rusher, you fit the scheme around that. Receivers are slightly different, to agree with your point. You can get new guys and to fit your scheme. But I think on defense, that's the move that really hurts me. And like you said, then you go on that tour telling everyone you don't have a pass rush. Well, yeah, you keep those guys around. You can always build off a defense. You can't build off an offense if it doesn't fit. If you don't have burners and you're running deep a lot, you're going to have to get some. If you don't have guys that can do the possession stuff and you want to do like a West Coast style, you have to get them. You can't do the receiver swap, and that's why I think guys like Antonio Brown, you got to be very weary if you're trying to get out of town, because you don't know what offense you're going to be running and if they're going to take advantage of your skill set. So that's the last thing I'll make. And the Amari Cooper deal, I understand that one, Gruden. You want to get rid of him and try to get another playmaker or someone else to fit your scheme, because some guys like tall receivers, some guys like the smaller. You kind of need a mix. And if you think he's too similar to what you have, get rid of him. But defense, you got to stack up on those awesome athletes. You just have to. So I'll go ahead and transition now. Just a little break from football, since we're going heavy this episode, to the World Series. I did have it up. Red Sox scored early. Red Sox and the Dodgers. And I know if I say it, he gets really mad at me if I call him Rick Nutting. But Rick will tell you that it's not about spending money. But these two teams, the Dodgers and the Red Sox, sure spent a lot of money to get here, Matt. Just like the Cubs did a few years ago.
Funny that you say that. Because that was exactly what I thought. Was that, and I think, and I look really in the Dodgers' case, they went after aggressively over the last couple of years. I mean, there were some whiffs, but they also hit on a lot of players too that you go out and if you're saying we're in it to win it, and if you're a Dodgers fan, you got to love the confidence that you have that they went out and got the pieces that they needed, and they're reaping the benefits of it now in the World Series. So we'll see if it pays out or pans out for them. But you got to respect a team that's willing to push the chips in and say, let's go for it.
And not only that, they didn't just go with bringing in pieces. They also built up their farm system to bring up guys like Puig. And they could have just been like, you know what? We're going to keep this youth movement going and live off that. They went out and got some pieces. And last year was supposed to be their year. They had the chance. Astros took it. And for them to get back is just impressive. But I will say my last point, I've thought about this for a while. And there's been discussions about the DH. For some reason, growing up, I always thought that it favored the NL teams because your pitcher was going to hit. But just looking at some of the data, pitchers just suck at hitting so bad that I think that the DH rule actually favors the NL teams, because you have one extra guy that's seeing major league pitching all year round. So you have one extra bat that you're able to bring in off the bench in those NL parks and pinch hit at any time. And I think that really puts you over the edge compared to the NL, where you don't have that extra hitter that's been sped up. Sure, you can platoon some guys, maybe have a guy that goes against right-handers or a guy that goes against left-handers. But I really think that Major League Baseball needs to get rid of that old rule, because I don't think it's fair to the NL teams. And I think if you go through the World Series of records, I think AL win more often. And I think that could be a big reason why. It's just not fair to have one extra hitter that's been facing big-time hitting all year long, or pitching all year long, ready to go at the drop of a hat. So I used to think opposite, but after I've been crunching numbers for this show, that's what I'm leaning towards. So we're going to check in with the World Series a little bit next week and maybe even wrap it up. We'll see how this goes. So big time. Hopefully Rick will be back on. He's our big baseball guy and give his insights. Let's get into the Big Ten football weekend. The big ones, 2 big games over the weekend. Michigan State, which I don't even know if I want to talk about it. Michigan wins, and a weather delay. Spartans always get some weird weather delays in their favor. Was it a year or 2 ago? Penn State, big weather delay. Penn State went into the locker room, had pizza party. They were doing live streams of them throwing jelly beans or something through the air and trying to eat them, catch them in their mouth. And of course, they didn't come back from that prepared, and they lost. I see the delay. I think, not again. Not again. The blocked punt, I see every highlight break. But Michigan finally broke through and got that win. Very balanced on offense. And I know, Matt, you had a point against this, which I'll give you your opinion here in a second. But almost 200 yards rushing, 200 yards passing. It kind of slipped up closer to the red zone. Harbaugh opted to punt it a few times. I don't know if he trusts the kicker. Whatever the kicker went in, Nordine, he missed his shot. I think it was like the 3rd time. They're around the 40s. Took some punts, which the punting has been awesome for Michigan. And I don't want to say they're in the driver's seat, but it looks like they are. Penn State, they have a bye week this week. Penn State, could you imagine if Penn State had beat Ohio State? The Michigan-Penn State game would have been for the Big Ten East. Instead, that 1-point loss at the end of that game really swung things, because this game kind of just plays a spoiler, could be meaningless. If Michigan drops this, it's going to come down to, unless they slip up against Indiana or Rutgers, which Indiana almost beat Penn State this past week. When you get the onside kick and things look like they're going to be in your favor, Indiana just never wins. I don't remember the last time they've won a game. They take Michigan to overtime. They're really close. They get onside kick against Penn State. Looks like they're going to win. They get sacked instead. They just blow it. They play Ohio State close. They're like the team that is always there to give you a scare, but it's like, I'm not really scared of this, and that's that. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on the Michigan offense? I know you texted me after that game.
Well, it just felt like all last year. I remember you talking about their offense and saying, things are stalling out. If we can upgrade the quarterback position, get a Harbaugh guy that can manage the offense, that we're going to see a lot more production. And I know that it was a weather game. I know that there were other things, but all in all, I told you early in the season, I wasn't impressed with the play calling. That I feel like it's very vanilla. It's very, there's not a lot to it. And now you add in 5-star Shea Patterson, that there's a guy that he should, by all ways and means, be the guy. And the offense doesn't look much different than it did with O'Korn or Spate. I mean, you take your pick, and to me, it looked interchangeable. The thing to me that stood out more, to be honest, was the defense. Michigan controlled the time of possession and everything, because Don Brown whooped Michigan State's ass, because that defense was just constant. No matter where Michigan State, outside of that Philly special that they hit, it was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. It was like consistently Michigan State struggled. Anytime they dropped back, Michigan was sacking a quarterback. When you get yourself into those predictable situations, you're gonna win the majority of the games doing things that way. And I think it helped with field position. It helped. It helped in a lot of other aspects as well.
Yeah, I want to say that I thought I had sent it to you guys, so I had it as a note for the show. But the defense is outstanding. That was a Rutgers level offensive performance by Michigan State. Michigan State didn't even get 100 yards on offense. Their best drive of the day was 50 yards. And you know what that was? 50 yards of penalties on Michigan's defense. Or maybe it was 48 yards or something.
Yes, because of the pass interference calls. It was back-to-back.
Yeah, their actual offensive stats was -2 yards. So without those penalties, they would have had a negative on that drive. So it's almost scary how fast they are. And Don Brown, I watched his interview, and they asked him about Penn State's game last year because they gave up 42 points, and he said, I haven't stopped thinking about it. I think about it every day since last year, which I can only imagine what that means. And I mean, does defense win a championship? And to your point on the offense, Matt, some of the play calling I think is vanilla. I went back to the I threw out the last year, and I went to the Jake Rudock year because I think that's the closest that you're going to see. And the first couple games, actually the first 8 games with Jake Rudock, who transferred from Iowa, he's now with the Detroit Lions. When he came in, highly touted quarterback, Harbaugh's first year, the first about 8 games were really rough. Utah, he threw 3 picks, and this is about the same sample size that Shea Patterson has. And I think I've seen a little bit more growth out of Shea compared to Rudock. And maybe it takes that long. We know Harbaugh runs an NFL scheme. I've already said multiple times to you off the show that Dylan McCaffrey, I kind of feel a little bit more comfortable with him running the offense because he's more decisive. And there was one play that really stood out to me. It was right before the Nordine missed kick. Donovan Peoples-Jones was wide open in the corner of the end zone. I don't know if Shea didn't see him. He looked like he was the second read, if not the primary read, and he didn't throw it. And he held onto the ball. He could have easily tucked it and ran and got close to a first down. There was one defender there. Or just throw it out of bounds. But instead, it was like he froze, didn't know what to do, and he took a sack when he didn't have to. Is that the reason we missed a kick? 5 yards or so? I don't know. With the kicker having problems, you never know. He could still miss the same kick. But that's the thing that I think you have to get, and it could just be because he's a transfer. The big question with him is he getting enough hype to go to the NFL next year? Because right now I would say no. Because there was all talk about him leaving early. He was looking for somewhere to transfer out of Ole Miss, play, showcase himself in a bowl game, which is why he wanted to leave Ole Miss. Ole Miss has another bowl ban, I believe. And he hasn't been doing that. Where Jake Rudock, he built that in. He played good, well, late in the year. And he got to the point where he blew out Florida in the Citrus Bowl. And that really had him rise right in the NFL draft ranks. So if Shea follows that trajectory, that's where we're going to really see. And this Penn State's going to be the biggest time. He's getting Tariq Black back, the number 1 receiving option that he had last year, got hurt at the beginning of this year as well. He was back for the Michigan State game, only played a few snaps, didn't get a target. And that's going to be the big key for them. Now, Penn State, on the other hand, they're playing Iowa this week, and I'll throw this on the game of importance, and I want to get your pick on this one. Iowa right now looks like they could be the team to beat in the West. I know they already dropped one to Wisconsin. Wisconsin has the Michigan loss. You also have Purdue and Northwestern all with 1 loss. But this game right here for Iowa is huge. If they beat Penn State, there's a good chance they could win the rest of the way and be the Big Ten rep in the West. If they lose to Penn State this weekend, it's in Happy Valley, they're pretty much done because they're going to lose that tiebreaker to Wisconsin. So what do you think their odds are of beating Penn State at home?
I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. But Iowa's such a bizarre team that they could go out and they could pull the upset off. You know, you never know which Iowa team is it going to be? The team that punts on 3rd down and plays sound defense and just plays to a 6-4 final, or is it a team that gets blown out by 35? I mean, it can go either way.
Well, that's what I was going to have. I was actually
in a contract year.
What?
Isn't Kirk Ferentz in a contract year?
I don't know, but when he's in a contract year, he goes all out. And we already saw the side snap play he brought out of the record books. That one weird snap that Mike Leach used this week. So you know coaches are looking at each other. But I was actually at the game in 2004, the Drew Tate year. And it was actually happened this day. Iowa beat Penn State 6-4, as you mentioned. They took an intentional safety and challenged an inept Lions offense to drive the field for the win, where they did not. And I was at the game, and I remember, well, why are they taking the safety? The punter just ran through the back of the end zone. And I was like, did they just want Penn State to win? And better believe it, Kirk Ferentz had a trick up his sleeve. He knew the defense was going to stop that offense. So this week is going to be a different theme. Is he going to pull out tricks? Is he going to do something? I don't know. I think they have a good chance. And Penn State needs to get things fixed because they have a kind of a brutal stretch here. They play Iowa, they play Michigan, and then they play Wisconsin. And that's really going to tell, how does Penn State play against Wisconsin and Iowa? That's really going to swing the West Division. The other big game this past weekend, last thing I'm going to hit on the Big Ten, Purdue and Ohio State. Urban Meyer looks like he's in the middle of a breakdown every time they show him on the sideline. During the Indiana game a week or two ago, he actually collapsed on the field, said he had a headache. I think we talked about it. There's supposed to be, he has something like a cyst or something, was what the rumor was. I don't know if he actually came out and said that. But he looked bad this past week. So bad, in fact, that he had to come out today and say there is no issue with him and the AD, the athletic director. And to me, if you have to come out and make that statement, then there is some tension there. And it's just, I don't know how to read them, because they got blown out last year and they got blown out the year before to Clemson in the playoffs. So they're good for one blowout a year. Is he able to rally the troops? And if he's not, they play Nebraska. I think they're on a bye week, the same as Michigan. So next week, they're on a bye week this week. Next week, they play Nebraska, and then I think they have Michigan State, which, are they going to be able to circle the wagons? Michigan State doesn't have an offense. Ohio State right now doesn't have a defense. Purdue marched all over the field, and it was almost like we said in the NFL. Purdue just ran down. They kept running slants, running screens, and they just kept moving the ball because they knew that if they didn't and they just sat down and punted to Ohio State, that they would lose. And they ended up winning like 49-20 or whatever the final score ended up being. So,
I saw a big thing with Urban Meyer. He kept his coordinators in Columbus to work on what they potentially need to adjust scheme wise. And usually, like with this being a bye week, going into a bye week for them, that's usually a time where they would be out on the road trying to recruit. But he kept the coordinators at home to try to work through some things scheme wise with them to see what they need to fix. And I guess one of the big quotes from Braum was that he knew that they would be able, once they got through the line, because of how close the linebackers played to the box, that if he could get through, there was such a big gap between where the line was and where the secondary was that they had an opportunity for some big plays, and he definitely capitalized on it.
Oh, they ran a couple misdirection run plays where that happened. You just get one crease, and it was almost like he was baiting the linebackers up. And I think whoever did the game is either Fowler or Reese Davis. I can never keep those guys straight. They mentioned it with Herbstreit that, hey, they're letting the linebackers come up, and then it's only the safety to beat, and it's a touchdown. And that's exactly what Purdue was doing. So it's scary for them because now you're in the point where you slip up one time and Michigan gets through these next couple games, you're out. You can beat Michigan, but it doesn't matter at this point. You're not the Big Ten champs. And the way this year's shaping up, Ohio State needs to win out or they're out. They're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. We had talked about the Big Ten potentially getting two teams. They're done now. You can't get killed at Purdue and expect to get the benefit of the doubt. The other team I would throw up there is Texas. I know it was the first game of the year, but you can't lose to Maryland, who is getting killed by everybody now. I mean, they just got shut out by Iowa. You can't have that as your loss. You can't have this Purdue team as a blowout loss. It's just not going to happen. So the bye week's off. The big game this week's Penn State, Iowa. I think I'll go Iowa on that one. So that's the game we're going to watch. I think Iowa pulls it out, and I think it makes the Big Ten West very interesting. And I think Penn State is going to be in a world of trouble the next couple weeks. So, last thing, ACC, I know we're going a little bit long. Matt, you want to give your update first?
Yeah, I was actually watching the Florida State Wake game. That was actually what got me to tune away from the Michigan game. But it was nice to actually see somewhat of a resemblance of what I know as Florida State football. They played Wake Forest. I expected them to win. I didn't have to hold my breath till the fourth quarter. They took care of business. Akers had a long run. Francois he's still looking uncomfortable, and I don't know if it's because he's having some lingering things from his knee, or if he really isn't fully comfortable with the reads in the offense. But there's a lot of things with like the quick throws on the outside where he has wide open guys like for bubble screens or quick screens on the perimeter, and he's just not pulling the trigger on. So I don't know what he's missing or how to adjust it. But that was the one big thing that I saw from the game, that it was nice that the defense continued just to play outstanding, and now the offense is finally starting to click. I think the combination, getting some guys healthy and the time with the scheme, they're starting to understand it a little bit more, going from Jimbo's pro style to Willie's Gulf Coast offense.
I think you could say the same thing we said about Shea. When you have a new coach, it could take weeks to get into that system. And if it is that 8-week cutoff, couldn't come at a better time for him to turn it on and that light to click. Big game of the week, Clemson. What are your thoughts going into that game?
Call me crazy, but I kind of like our chances. I think that this is an opportunity for Florida State to really step up and, also just sling some more mud in ACC's face. That Florida State, has looked really, really bad at points, if they knock Clemson off, it just completely just screws the pooch for the NCAAs, because they don't have, outside of Alabama, and I think you can say Notre Dame-ish, but you have those two, and then if Clemson loses to Florida State, who people continuously bash, I think it looks bad.
Well, I'll say this. I think the Florida State bashing, and I've thought about this for a long and hard time. I want to say that some of the bias that you get from the media is that they're going after teams that were successful in the 90s. And I think it's because people that are in their 30s and 40s were at an impressionable age in the 90s when you had teams like Florida State, Michigan. They're all teams that were dominant in the 90s. You can throw Miami in there. And the media always finds a way to harass them. And I've been wondering that some of the teams that weren't so hot in the 90s, Ohio State, they kind of turn into the lovable losers. How many times are they going to be upset by Timbiak Batuga or whatever team's going to knock them out of their chance? The 90s, USC wasn't good in the 90s. Alabama, they had 93, but after that, they weren't good. But Tennessee was. And who gets bashed in the SEC the most? Tennessee. So you have the teams. It's just something I noticed. So I wanted to inject that. Maybe I'll find some research to kind of see how many articles. But a Teddy Greenstein, a guy from, I think that's his name, I think he's like a Northwestern alum from Chicago, wrote a huge hit piece on Michigan after they won the game on how they were pretenders. And I just wondered, like, what happened to this guy? Why does he hate Michigan so much that he can't give an unbiased article that just talked about how they won the game and only gave up less than 100 yards on offense or on defense? So go ahead, Matt. But keep that in mind when you're thinking of Florida State, because I've been thinking about that for a while. I think the internet ruined it.
But I think it cracked me up because going to even some of the stuff we talked about last week, how people were bashing Scott Frost at Nebraska. Like, they gave him a hard time. With Jimbo Fisher, he was like the worst coach because he was at Florida State, and then now that he's at Texas A&M, he's this revolutionary coach and ace recruiter and everything else. Like, well, how the hell did he go from being like the worst coach and the most overrated coach to a godsend to Texas A&M, and he's going to bring them to the promised land? It's like, what did he do differently other than take a big paycheck to go to A&M?
I'm telling you, you can throw Nebraska in there. You can even throw Penn State in. with their 94 team. I mean, they're going to get bashed. I see the Scott Frost stuff all the time. Could you imagine the chaos if he gets his team clicking and they upset Ohio State again? I mean, it's crazy, but you're right. The Jimbo Fisher thing, I will never understand. He won at Florida State. I understand he had some issues, but there is no way that he's a better coach now at A&M. Like, he's getting the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
If you're having trouble to win at Florida State, you're not going to get it at A&M. You just not, it's going to take you a few years to get that talent up, and it just doesn't make sense.
And I do think that he went through a spell, especially around the time after we won the national championship in 13, that a lot of those good coaches were being plucked for other spots. And there was a lot of turnover that he had to replace coaches. And it was like back to back to back where he's replacing guys. And I think he hit a point where there were a couple coaches that he hired that weren't as strong. And so when no one's looking to pull those coaches and you're stuck with average recruiters and average developers, you get what we ended up having, where they weren't pulling in receivers because of Dossie. They weren't pulling in linebackers. I mean, and pretty much at the point that they were at, even with the offensive line, there were a lot of misses with the offensive line that if you're not developing it, if you can't recruit it, it puts you at a huge disadvantage, because we had a lot of talent at running back. We have a lot of talent in the secondary, but if you can't get any pressure, if you can't, get the ground game going, those running backs aren't going to help you. The rest of that stuff isn't going to work.
Oh, I totally agree. And you could even argue that Ohio State's going through the same thing. You lose a bunch of guys and you replace them with your buddies. The one guy Urban Meyer hired was like his best man at his wedding. It's not going to work out for you when push comes to shove. So yeah, it's something that you kind of have to ease in. But I think a lot of times that's whenever a coach has a few down years and then someone steps in and says, hey, you have to make a move. And whoever you bring in is going to be the guy to bring in that is able to take that next step. But I'll say the NC State, they poked the bear. They poked Clemson, accused them of cheating. Was it last year, 2 years ago? And Dabo Swinney now views them. I know that they're supposed to be rivals, but he views them as like one of their top rivals. And you could tell that he went all out. And I think he even admitted that he was trolling them at the end of the game. Just, you can't do that. You can't come close to knocking them off like they did a few years ago.
Yep.
Miss a kick. You come in this year, come in hot, they're going to be ready for you. That's like the worst thing to do.
Well, and I'll say this, with going into Clemson, into Clemson week, Clemson's defense has just been phenomenal. But Florida State's defense is right there, step for step in sacks and a lot of major defensive categories. It's right there with Clemson. And with them having a freshman quarterback, that could be something that if Florida State can get some pressure on them, maybe they get a couple turnovers, it can potentially change the game. I don't know if their offense can generate enough points to pull the win out, but I don't think it's going to be the ass whipping that everyone's going to project it to be.
Oh, I predict a hard-fought game, and at this point, I'm leaning to Clemson by 3. I think it's going to be something like 34-31, where you get some field goals early, things settle down, you get a couple scores, and Florida State keeps it closer. And hey, if they get the ball last, they could win. But right now, I'm thinking Clemson's going to pull this out, and after those 2 victories is when they could stumble down the stretch against someone else like Boston College or someone that's left on their schedule. So what's your prediction on the game?
I got to go against my heart. I want to say like a 35-21. I see Clemson knocking them off. I think they may get a couple scored or 20 where they get some field goals, but I just don't know. At the end of the day, I think Clemson has the continuity with Dabo at the helm and a lot of consistency with his coordinators, and I just think they're going to get it done on the road. Although, hoping I'm wrong.
I think they're coming off an emotional win, and I think this is the step that Florida State's going to take with Willie Taggart, and this is going to get people believing in him again. And I just think they fall a little short, almost like Syracuse did, where that extra depth, or you find yourself getting behind and you just can't do enough at the end of the game, and Clemson survives. But we'll see what happens. I know we're running out of time, so just some quick hits. There was a rumor that Bobby Petrino was going to get fired this morning. I think Fox Sports put it out and then deleted it, which got it to trend, at least on their Southbound Sports account. It's been kind of unverified. No one has confirmed it or kind of unconfirmed it. Like, no one has came out and said, hey, Bobby Petrino is still our coach. The rumor is they want to make a push for Jeff Brom, Purdue's head coach, and he's an alum of Louisville. This might be the only time to get him, because if Urban steps down, Ohio State's going to make a play for someone like that, the next big up-and-coming coach, the next Tom Herman. And do they make the move? I don't see how they would fire Petrino in the middle of the year without getting some of that kind of like the Scott Frost handshake. But in the middle of the year, I think if you have that handshake, you don't fire your coach. The rumor the thing stuck me, and I'll get your thoughts, Matt, was that they were doing an investigation to see if they could get Bobby Petrino for cause, so they didn't have to pay the $14 million buyout, which is how the rumor started. And if that is what it comes down to, and you're a head coach, I would be very, very hesitant to go to a school that's willing to investigate you just to fire you when the contract is put in place to prevent that. So as a coach, Matt, what are your thoughts on that whole situation?
I think it's a shady deal. I don't like that they would try to do that unless they're thinking, oh, we're going to have to fire him within the year or two. But there's no way that you're going to pay that. And I think the reason you're seeing some of the buyouts the way that you are is because the university wants to protect themselves against guys jumping ship. But it also you want to try to, when they first signed, Petrino, they wanted to lock him in long term and keep him from leaving right away to go to a bigger school or a better school. So, I mean, I think it kind of works both ways, but I think it's shady that now they're trying to push him out the door.
Yeah, I would hate for it to be true. And some of the other rumors were that because he received intel, or Louisville's coach, I don't know if he was there at the time, from one of the Wake Forest guys, that they might be able to get him for cheating of some other similar kind. And I hate to spew out rumors, but it was a big enough deal that, hey, Brom upsets Ohio State. Now all of a sudden there's a lot of smoke. And no one has come out and said, hey, this is false. You would think the AD would come out and say, hey, this is false. Not so much Petrino coming out and doing something like, I didn't cheat, because that would be wrong, kind of like Urban Meyer did. The AD should be the guy that comes out and says it, which is what struck me odd in the Urban Meyer deal. AD, he's the boss. You should be the one saying it. Don't make someone else make that statement. But I just don't know. It's a crazy year already, and we're only 8 weeks in. So plenty more to come. Going into the final bell, I guess I could mention Pitt real quick. Pitt's still in it for their division, but I need to see some more consistency. 3-4 is something to not get excited about. So I'll leave them at that since we're going long. What you got for the final bell, Matt?
Funny that you say that. I was actually trying to find it. I saw a stat, and I wish I could find it again here. If I do it, I'll send it to you. But it was actually talking about how within the conference, Pitt's up there is one of the better performers in conference play in the ACC. Since they've joined the conference, they've performed well. Now, the thing that's hurt them is with their non-conference schedule, they go 500. They go with like a losing record. Their non-conference schedule hurts them for whatever reason. So maybe they need to follow Mishler and just start scheduling,
the cupcakes.
FBS. Yeah.
That's what they need to do. I honestly think so. They scheduled UCF, which, come on, that's a bad deal. And then you scheduled Penn State too.
Coming off of their national championship run, where they still have a lot of players there.
Yeah, it's been bad that they can't get any consistency in the scheduling. They need to do what some of the bigger schools do and find that team that's close by that they can go ahead and get a few wins in. Go after like a Toledo or someone. I know Toledo's been hot recently, and like Cincinnati, you're not going to be able to get, because you need to find a team that's in your area that you can beat, that you can then recruit that area from. Ohio's a big one, but a lot of their schools are pretty decent. So look to Virginia. Go play Liberty. Go play another school like that. I'd say Old Dominion. I think that's in Virginia, but they beat Virginia Tech. So you got to kind of be careful. When you schedule these teams, you have to make sure that you win. Don't go schedule UCF. Don't go schedule an App State. Don't go schedule someone else that is known for upsetting schools. You do not want that. Go ahead and get Miami of Ohio. Ben Roethlisberger's not there anymore. Get him. Get them. So that's what they need to do. They need to get their wins, and they can go from there. So, I don't know. You have anything else?
That's it.
The only thing I wanted to mention, I didn't say it during the talk, but got some Twitter heat about the pregame shuffle or scuffle, I guess, between Michigan State and Michigan. But I don't see anything wrong on the Michigan side of things, because it's clearly stated on the Michigan State website that they do their player walk at 9:45. The AD then came out and said that they didn't start till 10:02, which Matt's a coach here. If you've played any sport, and I think a lot of guys that were given Michigan heat, I'll be honest, have never played sports in their life. So they don't know how things work. You get a schedule. If Michigan's time was to take the field at 10 for warm-ups, then by God, they're going to be on the field at 10 for warm-ups. Because with the NCAA, you only get so many hours to be out there. You can't be on the field before. The officials never would have sent them out. So it was definitely Bush League, like Harbaugh said, that they sent our guys out and then wanted Michigan players to get back off the field. And then D'Antonio lied about it. And to be honest, I was glad the Big Ten Network called him out on it, because no one on ESPN or the national media did. He came out, they did the march. D'Antonio was 5 yards behind, exactly like Harbaugh said, and there's a video of him smiling as they approached Devin Bush, which all the people that are coming after Devin Bush, you are kidding me. Because, Matt, would you want Devin Bush to play for Florida State?
Yes, he should be. His daddy was at Florida State. He should have stayed with his dad. I get pissed off because if he's a linebacker. Florida State needs linebackers. If he's there, maybe we don't have those losses that we have earlier in the year.
He's so fast. So anyone that is watching the games and you're telling me you don't want a leader like that, that stands up for your team, stands up for yourself, you're kidding yourself. And you're finding something stupid to get upset about, because like both schools kind of agreed, it's up to the athletic directors to work something out. If the coach wants to do something stupid like that to try to get the team fired up, the AD needs to step in and be like, hey, knock it off. He didn't do that. He lied about it. But whenever you have it printed on your website, 9:45, you can lie all you want. Any internet sleuth is going to easily find that screenshot, and I'll share it, and that will pretty much be the end of that. And I didn't want to harp on it earlier in the show, but I figured I'd use it as my final bell. So hopefully that gets you fired up, just like Devin Bush was. Crack some skulls. Let's go get some big upsets. I want to see Florida State play well, and I want to see Iowa upset Penn State so we can get some good championship games in the Big Ten. I don't want a 3-loss team coming in the West. So that's it for this week. Check us out, Southbound Sports, on Facebook and Instagram. I've been working on trying to get some more Instagram stuff up. But I'll be trying to do that. We had a little bit of content for a while, but that hurricane stuff really messed me up. And then S-Bound Sports on Twitter. So check us out. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast feed. That's where we get our numbers. So definitely thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.